Now tasers are targets. Tasers have come under fire again. Recently, a 46-year-old man with Down syndrome got tasered when 8 police showed up for a 911 call to his group residence where he was supposedly agitated. Now, you'd think that there's got to be a better way to deal with an agitated, retarded guy than to electrocute him. I mean, the taser is supposed to be a non-lethal replacement for a gun. So unless they had to shoot him, there's no real reason that they should have tasered him. Public Security Minister Jacques Dupuis defended the use of tasers by police. He says, there is a simple truth. When you don't comply with a policeman's orders, you expose yourself to a number of things, which basically means if you don't do what the police want, pretty much anything can happen to you. You can get electrocuted, for example. The headline for this article, Cops Allowed to Get It Wrong. You may remember back in 2007, the guy, Robert Czekansky, the Polish guy, who freaked out at the airport and got tasered. Well, he was up against a wall with his hands up, and the police tasered him and then beat him, and it's all on film. It was on YouTube. It was all over the place. Now, it turns out that the RCMP had made a decision not to correct false information about his death, but they now say that they were not deliberately misleading the public. So the bottom line here is that even though this man was surrendering and was tasered on video, there was, for no reason, there was no real consequence to the police who did it, because cops are allowed to get it wrong, which means they can pretty much do whatever they want. If you're not putting up any resistance, they can still electrocute you. Avoid chest hits, new guidelines. So the solution is just don't taser them in the chest, because as Taser International says, should a suspect die of sudden cardiac arrest after being tasered in the chest, it would place the officer, the law enforcement agency, and Taser International in, quote, a difficult situation of trying to ascertain what role, if any, the taser could have played. That's what the company bulletin said. What role, if any? Well, what do you think? What role do you think it could have played? I mean, you take a person and you electrocute them in the chest and they have a sudden heart attack, and you don't think the taser could have played a role? I mean, it's kind of like the vaccines, oh, it's just a coincidence. I actually went and talked to some cops once, and I asked them, what they thought of tasers and the taser use in Montreal, and they told me that there were only a couple of tasers on the force in Montreal. But they told me, and this is what they are taught in their brainwashing sessions, that when people die, when they get tasered, it's not the fault of the taser. They would have died anyway. Random booze checks are too intrusive. So not only are the cops allowed to taser you and kill you, and it's no problem, they can just do that if they feel like it, basically, but they are also now allowed to check you for alcohol intoxication when you're driving, even if they have no real reason to suspect that you're intoxicated, like you're not weaving or doing anything like that, but they're allowed, or would be if law gets passed, to just stop people randomly and give them a breathalyzer. And the groups like Mothers Against Drunk Driving are saying, of course, well, this is going to save a lot of lives. Of course, it's always for your protection when you give the police more and more and more power. But really what it's doing is it's just doing that. It's giving them more power, and it's allowing them to just violate people's privacy and personal freedoms, and to just basically harass people. Ban wearing of the burqa, Muslim group demands. Oh, well, it's the Muslims demanding it, so it must be what they want, right? Well, Farzana Hassan of the Muslim Canadian Congress says the burqa marginalizes women, and what they are calling for is a law that would outlaw not only the burqa and the niqab, which is the covering that just leaves your eyes uncovered, where the burqa covers you head to toe, but also masks, face masks. And their excuse for this is that, well, she says that some of the women who wear these coverings are being forced to do so by their husbands. But if they're being forced to do anything by their husbands, that should be a personal and private issue that should be resolved in some other way, other than passing a law, because a lot of husbands make their wives do things that they don't necessarily want to do. For example, some husbands make their wives get breast implants. So are you going to ban breast implants? So what this is really doing is just banning face coverings, because why is a mask listed in there? You know, you don't wear a mask for religious reasons, do you? The end goal here, I think we can easily see through this, is that face coverings interfere with facial recognition software. Now, in England already, in London, they have CCTV cameras everywhere with facial recognition software. And when you get your Medicare or your passport picture taken now, it's done in such a way that it can be integrated into this kind of a system. So they've already, I don't know if they ended up passing the law or they tried to, that you're not allowed to cover your face at a protest. Now they want to go even further and just make it flat out illegal to cover your face anytime. Because that's really all this is about. Because any woman could just put on a scarf over her head and go out like that. I mean, who's really going to know if I'm a Muslim or not if I do that? But I still have the right to cover my face. I have the right to cover my face for whatever reason. If I want to put on a mask of Mickey Mouse, that should be my right to do it. But now they're working on removing that right from us. And another excuse that she gives, this Mrs. Hassan, she says, "We are saying this practice has become a political issue promoted by extremists, and to counter this trend, we are asking for a ban on the burqa." So there you go. If you have a burqa or a niqab, you must be a terrorist. It's always the same thing. It's always, we need to take your privacy and your freedom away to protect you, and if you don't go along with it, or if you practice your religion in any kind of visible way, you're a terrorist. So that's the progress that the police state is making in Montreal this fall.